And Alex, do you want to call the design review meeting to order?
Sure. We'll call to order the June 2nd, 2022 Ohio City Design Review Committee to order. Nate, if you want to call the roll.
Yep. Alex Frondorf.
Here.
Antonia Marinucci.
Here.
Margaret Land.
Here.
And Chris Lozier.
Here. Sorry, I'm late.
No problem, Chris. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Nate, since why don't we move Dave's Hot Chicken to the front of the agenda?
Yeah.
We'll do that, and then we'll do the two that we won't have quorum for. Last.
That sounds good to me. Thank you. Thanks, Alex. So, Nick and Joe, do you want to take it away?
Sure. So as you can probably see from the documents, we revised all of our plans based on feedback from the last meeting. And I think the sort of the shape and size of the storefront, not size, but the shape and design of the storefront is really what you guys were most interested in. And I think we've addressed it in pretty much exactly the way that you've asked. So if you want to scroll on down and take a look. Apparently all the way down. There you go. So as you can see, it's got the doors repositioned to the middle as they originally were historically for the building. There was an angled setback to get into them, provide some overhang, and then the storefront glass is more traditional large paned glass, which is also something you guys wanted to see. And then the paneling under the glass, the storefront glass, and you can see it on the side window there, has a more traditional paneled look to it. And I believe has been altered to the correct height.
Are you doing the windows on the 2 stories above it as well then?
No, the second story is not ours. Third story is already done, I believe. I think that that's like a condo or
Yeah,
it's a residential unit. Yeah.
We didn't really talk about it in the last meeting, but the Greetings from Cleveland mural on the side, I assume I had heard that you wanted that kept, but we didn't talk about it during the meeting.
Do you have a preference other than keeping it?
Well, honestly, it just hasn't. I was originally told that we were probably going to have to keep it, so we hadn't put much thought into it other than just keeping it there. I don't know what the committee's view is on it. You may turn around and say, "Oh my God, we hate that thing. Get rid of it." I don't know.
Does Ohio City know what the agreement with the artist is and how long that agreement runs out?
I'm unaware. No, I don't know.
I think that would have to be taken into consideration. I know there was a previous proposal that they wanted to open up the windows and keep it. I think it's a tourist attraction and it would probably help drive business to you to keep it there, just because people do take their picture in front of that a lot. But I think we would have to find out what the agreement is with the artist and whether it can be removed before.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that you were even considering removing it. I agree with Carl that I think it is an attraction and probably benefits you in the long run overall. But if you wanted to make that request, I think that would be a separate agenda item.
We didn't it's not necessarily that we have a strong preference one way or the other. We just wanted to know what you guys wanted out of it. Joe, do you have any information on its history or?
I want to say that was coordinated by Land Studios. I'd have to go back through my email archive and see exactly how and when that was put on the building. It's a piece of neighborhood character. We've enjoyed it for several years. It seems like it speaks well to the signage package that Dave has put together here. So
We don't have any problem with keeping it. I'm
Yeah.
just asking because we hadn't talked about it.
Well, on the assumption that it's staying, going back to the storefront itself, I appreciate that you've moved the door to the center where it was historically located. I think that's a very nice addition. And then if you go up to slide, can you talk to me about the dividers between the door system and then the two? It looks like I'm having difficulty seeing what's going on there. Is that more brick or on page what page this is? On page 3. Now go down page 3 of their PDFs that were sent to us. No, one more. Okay. Keep going. Right there. Yep.
So do you mean just the divide between the center third and the two outer thirds?
Yeah, maybe it was because I had a small image on my screen. I couldn't tell what that was.
It's actually, I'm not sure exactly what the architect drew it as. It's not brick because it's not currently a brick column, but there are two structural columns there. My assumption was that was going to be, some sort of just storefront material, like to match the mullions, for example. But it could be, whatever color you guys wanted it to be. It doesn't really matter.
Hey, can you zoom in more on that, please? I think it's just a miscolorization. I think the brick's supposed to come all the way down to that. It looks like it's a similar.
Yeah, that might be true because if you go up 1, 2,
Yeah,
slides, it shows. Yeah, it's showing something different. And if you even go up 2 more. Right there, yeah.
I think the graphics company may have extended a red column down
Okay.
because it's covering over some of the glass panels as well.
yeah, I agree. Sorry about that.
No, I just wanted to verify. And then the last time we spoke, this project did not go through the city's storefront renovation program. Is that still true?
We actually are trying to shepherd something through the sign company.
Okay, just the signage, not the storefront.
That's correct.
Okay. And is the signage also before us today, or is it just the storefront?
Alex, I think we're just doing the storefront today.
Okay. All right.
Though this is the final signage package, though.
Yeah, you guys had asked last time about whether there was going to be what we refer to as a blade sign, and it is on there. I believe it was on the last time too, but it's on the south side of the front elevation. You can see it right there on the slide that's up. There's sticking out from the storefront.
Okay.
You guys had asked very specifically about that as part of like sort of older sign style that would be fitting with the with the area.
Right. Well, if that's not properly before us today, then we won't get into the signage itself unless the committee would like to offer its feedback on that, on what's proposed.
Happy to discuss it if we can knock something out on it and makes life easier down the road.
Okay, so I see that if you look at Nate, if you scroll down there to the south elevation, where it shows the two signs, yeah, there. So you have both a blade sign and then another circle sign above that side window there.
Correct. And then on the front, channel letters.
And are they illuminated?
That would be our preference, absolutely. The blade
Both of
sign,
them?
especially in the channel letters, but we would prefer that they all were, yeah. I think it looks good on that style street.
Yeah. No, and I think the blade sign is the right dimensions, and I have no problem with it being illuminated. I wonder if having the next one right next to it is overkill, but I don't feel strongly about it. All right, and then yeah, the Dave's Hot Chicken sign. So that's, tell me about the lettering there.
Well, that is that's the Dave's corporate font. That's I believe it's called My Underwood. It's interestingly a typewriter font. And that is a halo lit sign, sort of glow against the brick behind it. As you can see, it stood off from that, the drawing right next to it. It shows the sort of the cutaway from the side. It's stood off from the face of the building. All the lighting is LED. Obviously, these days, everyone is. But
And it's backlit.
yes, like halo lit.
Okay.
But the round signs won't be. There is around the outside, but the center is also lit. What else did you need to know about it?
How are you mounting it to the brick?
I believe that the specs called specifically for mounting only to mortar joints.
Okay, that's the right answer.
So I just trying to figure out, are we going to, if we're talking about the signage, is there going to be, are you requesting approval today? You said you weren't?
Well, we weren't sure that this was a separate thing. We would love to have approval today if we could.
I believe, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong again, but it has to be two separate motions if it's signage and the facade renovation, which is what was on the agenda.
If you're going through the signage program with storefront renovation, I think you treat this one as conceptual, get feedback, and then ask for a vote on the storefront.
Okay.
All right, my only thought, and I would like the other committee members to weigh in, is whether or not the font itself, the sign is a bit on the larger side. Feels a little overpowering for that area, but I could be talked out of it. That's my initial, and that's my only criticism. I think it might be a bit large.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of comments. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I was having some troubles connecting in. Do you, when you come back for final approval for the signage itself, do you have any examples of photos of installations other places so that we can get a sense of what the backlighting and all that kind of looks like at night? I think that would be helpful to kind of visualize as part of the discussion. I don't have any problems with the signage itself. I would say the sign on the side, it looks like it's 5 feet in diameter. I wonder if that might be a little large. Maybe something that was more in line with the overall height of the Dave's Hot Chicken signage on the front, which is closer to, looks like 3 feet. Might be something that might be a little bit more in keeping with the scale of the other signage pieces. And again, you have the blade sign that's I think 2'6" that sort of sticks out from the building. So I think that's my only comment is really the sort of the size of that particular round surface applied building sign.
This is Rich. The only issue with that is that's our only signage on that side because you have the Cleveland artwork on that side of the building. There really isn't any signage on this side of the building, which we go all the way back. So if we can maximize that, that would be helpful, but obviously that is your call.
Understood.
All right, any other feedback on the signage?
Yeah, I would just echo Alex's point in that I thought the sign along the front seemed a little on the large side, but I also could be talked out of it. I think seeing a picture would be great to get an idea of what it looks like at night.
Sure, we'd be happy to. We've got one from our Lakewood location. I can.
Perfect, thank you.
I just have one question on the storefront, the paneling. What material will that be?
Like the paneling below the storefront windows. I don't think we have that spec'd out yet, but I'm imagining it to be metal. I don't know what else you would do like a paneling with.
Okay, well, I didn't know if it was going to be wood or metal.
Yeah, we would do metal over wood. It's just it's a whole lot easier to.
And assume it would be the same color as the divides, or you.
Well, that is, it's not set in stone and doesn't have to be set in stone. If there's something that someone prefers, we can have the architect draw it. However, but I was envisioning it. Most historic storefronts that I see that have paneling below the window system tends to be in a very dark color, dark bronze. So that was the way that I was seeing it.
Okay, so and then that would be the same for the divides in the whole system.
Yeah, you'd want all that to be the same, I would think.
Sounds good to me.
My comment for the signage is that my preference is that front facing sign, the Dave's Hot Chicken sign, is a little bit smaller, maybe like a 75% of the size it is now. I think it's a little bit overwhelming at the moment. But I obviously want it to still be an effective sign for car traffic. But to clarify Margaret's question, you guys don't have the material of the paneling below specified nor the color yet?
Correct, just the basic idea of what it will look like. But
Are we
you guys had
approving only the windows? I feel like those are both important pieces of the storefront package that should be considered.
Materiality and the color.
Do my colleagues agree? And I realize that little rendering is by the signage manufacturer. So is that, like what's the representation of the color? I know, I think material and color of both of those elements need to be of the paneling mullions should be specified at this point.
It looks like on the construction drawings that they are calling out an aluminum storefront. And I'm looking here for a color finish.
Okay, aesthetically, the storefront is great. I don't have any comments on the aesthetics, but I do think that from the material and color should be specified for final approval. And I have one more clarification. On the sheet A201, it does show existing windows where that mural is. Are those windows behind the mural? I just don't know. Or is the intention to replace new windows? Are those, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what the windows are on that facade behind the mural or where the mural currently exists.
Well, the windows that are closed off on that south side need to be reinstalled, whatever. But anything that's behind the mural, if the mural is going to stay, then those have to stay blanked off.
Okay, so like when we're looking at this from the front end of the building, we're obviously going to reinstall that historic recreated panel. Then there's the two that are visible, and then there's the two sets of two that are behind the mural and
Right, right.
Is the mural like on a panel? I'm not.
No, it's on the building.
It's on the building itself.
But they're currently filled in to complete the mural.
Yes,
So the intention is to keep the whole, everything as is that's touching the mural, that you're not going to you're not going to replace those windows and therefore disrupt the mural.
correct.
Okay.
I was able to zoom in on the construction drawings and it says all aluminum mullions to be dark bronze anodized finish.
Mm.
It's under general notes on page 12.
Yep.
Yeah, but not for that knee wall. There's not a specific.
Yeah, I have not found that.
I'm finding like circular references where it's saying you need
Mhm.
an A200.
So I mean, we could propose our motion with the understanding that the knee
Yeah.
wall is the same material and color.
And this will go to landmarks, right, Carl? Because it's not a storefront. So are we the final approval or is landmarks do that too?
Probably have it go to landmarks, but the signage, should it go through the storefront renovation program, will be final with you.
Okay, and I guess, yes, I think if we could have, I would obviously suggest and have clarification on what that construction is. And I would recommend bronze seems appropriate and for the mullions for me. But I would definitely have that clarified and, you know, representation of what that looks like from like your color selection for landmarks approval.
Sure. We'd be happy to have that.
Yeah, just having a more, having an answer to what the knee wall is, whether it's metal to color to match, just even that, you know, anodized aluminum to match mullions, color to match, whatever.
Yep, if that's the way that you guys want that, that's fine with us. I can direct them to do that.
Yeah, I would also suggest in those same lines, what the design of those knee walls are going to be. It looks like there's some sort of applied molding as well. They're not just flat panels. So if you could develop whatever the design drawings are for the knee wall itself for landmarks, I would suggest that you do that as well.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, do we feel that we're ready to make a motion? I will do so if we're ready.
Yeah, and is it minor? I know that the second floor is not before us, but is it second floor still, those windows are still boarded over?
As far as I know, they still are. Joe, you know more about the building than anyone else. What's the story on the second floor?
I'm sorry, Al, can you restate your question? I didn't quite get the whole.
Yeah, only because the renderings that are provided to us show call out windows on the second floor. And I know that that's not what you're asking for, but I am asking, is it the intent that those windows are boarded up, remain boarded up? What's the current state of affairs and what are you proposing to do?
Yeah, at present, we have no plans to change those windows. Obviously, as we have a tenant or a use for that second floor, they'll get updated. The picture I think that we're looking at though currently on the screen is not a updated image. I don't think that's what's the existing condition right now.
Yeah, right now the third floor is finished.
Right.
I recall, yeah.
Okay, I think any motion then should be clear because the renderings that are submitted do show windows there that it pertain only to the first floor storefront would be my recommendation. So as chair, I cannot make a motion, but would someone like to?
I can make a motion. Motion to approve as presented with the requirement that the applicants provide that knee wall detail and color choice to Landmarks Commission and to clarify that the second floor windows are not included in this proposal. It's just ground floor work.
And the signage is not included in this motion either.
Correct. Signage is also not included.
I will second that.
Right, Nate, call the roll.
Alex Frondorf,
Yes.
Antonia Marinucci,
Yes.
Margaret Land,
Yes.
and Chris Lozier.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yes, thank you.
So now the remaining two agenda items, since Antonia is presenter and recusing, this will be for comment only. We won't be able to take a vote. Is that correct, Nate?
That's correct. Yep.
Nate, can you clear, so can we take these to landmarks? Or do we have to come back a second time if there's not quorum on these ones? Or is it just gonna be?
You can go for conceptual at landmarks. I
Okay.
believe. Oh, is this conceptual approval? I mean, this is a renovation, I guess. So
This one, I mean, I will take final approval if you guys can give it, or we can do concept, whatever it needs to be for the process. They're both pretty straightforward at this point, so if they, if there's significant comment that makes sense to come back, then definitely.
I mean, I think we can. It would be, if this is being reviewed for final approval, in the notes it'll say that there was no quorum, but there were comments made about this, and you could still go to landmarks. Is at least how I've remember it being done in the past.
To be consistent with how we have done this, there's the reasonable expectation that there should be a quorum at each meeting, and it's not the applicant's fault that we lose that.
Right.
So make all the recommendations you normally would, and then we will take it on to the commission, noting that the quorum was lost.
Cool. Okay, first, I also wanted to introduce my colleague, Danny Cohen. She's, I think most of you guys have met her or know Danny. She's a budding historic preservationist. So she has assisted me with both of these projects. So she's here too. Okay, so our first one is this property on Jay Avenue. It's a single family home. The homeowners came to me and they were interested in exploring a modification to the property that would allow them to allow us to make more use of the existing floor plate. So it's a roof line modification. It's not technically an addition because we're not adding square footage, but we are modifying the roof line to the rear of the property to be able to better accommodate the program, which is a ensuite bathroom. And allow us to have appropriate head height for those fixtures. So this is the existing condition. The historic research on the property pretty much seems like it's in its existing state, accurate to its historic, how it was originally, with the exception of a couple modifications already to the rear that you'll see. Some more just existing photos of the front and of the sides. Majority of this modification will only be visible from the rear of the house. So this is the existing rear south facade. You can kind of see where some of these modifications started coming into play. There's like a sort of like an extended sunroom situation at the most rear. Then there's a existing laundry room, rear entrance, which is where you see those two double hung windows in the middle. And then there is what I would say like the main structure of the house, and that little shed pop-up that was added at some point to give head height to an existing shower. So we're really hoping and aiming to simplify a lot of these kind of elements at the rear, while also again achieving the head height for the interior spaces, so that we can really make use of the floor plate. That low sweeping roof line on the back of the house, which is kind of a gable in some points and a little bit of a hip in other points, creates a crunch on that head height and usable square footage along the back perimeter. You can go to the next slide. So I included the floor plans if anyone's so inclined, just so you can understand programmatically why we're kind of needing to modify the roof line. But here's the existing roof plan and the proposed, and what we're essentially doing. It's a lot of things coming together. It's kind of difficult to get a grasp of visually what's happening, but what it boils down to is that we are going to take that main front gable and continue to extend it all the way to the rear. It's currently cut off by an interesting little hip situation, as well as taking an existing kind of shed portion at the back of the side facing gable and just peeling it up to a more shallow pitch so that we can smooth out all of the sort of edges and achieve that head height. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you could scroll down a little bit more, Nate, thanks. Important to note is that the north facade, the front facing primary facade, is completely unaffected by our changes, as well as you can see that there's no visual change to the roof lines from that straight elevation viewpoint. The proposed west facade is illustrating beyond, you can see the extension of that existing gable line, as well as the kind of gentle lifting of the rear. It's sort of a gable, but it also sheds a little bit. But I think you can see the difference between these two, and especially if you're looking at the windows of where we're trying to achieve head height. The rearmost two masses, the sunroom and the kind of existing laundry rear entry, are going to remain as is. So the work is really concentrated to that the second story. And looking at it from the rear south facade and then the east facing facade, you can see what we're proposing. From a window, we're keeping the similar window kind of rhythm and language of the existing house, which is double hung windows. Angelo, my client who's on the call, is a really fantastic steward of historic windows, and he is going to work with a craftsman who will create like full, proper, historically accurate wood windows, even with like weights and sashes and everything pretty much a historic replica, which is really awesome. But otherwise, we're matching existing in terms of roof. We're matching existing in terms of material, which is wood cladding, and going to be matching the existing paint that's not part of this proposal. So really it is hopefully a very sensitive alteration to this property so that they can again have that usable, make use of the existing floor plate. You can go down, please. Again, I just did a zoom in on that rear facade so you could see more of the intention in terms of materiality. And it's a pretty much straight up matching existing in terms of all the detailing, all of the wood elements, existing gable line, really just extending what's there. Next slide. These are the wood window elements I was talking about. A look at the sash detail, and as well as some documentation on those components. It's an Ohio sash detail, the Lexington style double hung. That's what we got. Any questions on this one or comments?
I think it's a very appropriate non-addition addition.
Yeah, I agree. I think it cleans up that rear facade tremendously. You know, I have no issues whatsoever with the concept or with the ideas or anything like that. It seems like it really does create a much more usable space along the rear of the second floor.
Could you scroll up to the one, keep going up, I'll let you know. That one there, please. I'm just trying to look at the alignment of the new window. Kind of comes out further than the double below. Is that intentional, or should that line up a little bit better? Because existing lines up to the front, and then it kind of pops out a little bit back to the back. Should it line up with the first floor?
About we're looking at the west facade.
Yeah.
And looking at that one, it is. I suppose it could align with the double hung below. It's mirroring from an interior standpoint the other existing. So those two, if we're looking at just the upstairs, the two double hungs that are towards the rear are in the bedroom. I don't think there's any issue if you would suggest that it aligns with below. It's just currently mirrored inside that interior volume. You know, about 2 feet from.
That's the only thing that kind of caught my eye there, but
Well, wait a minute, it's mirroring what? Because I'm looking at the east facade and it's mirroring to what window?
Oh, it's mirroring, if you go to the floor plan, Nate, it will be a little bit more. It's mirroring it along that same west facade, Alex, from an interior standpoint. So if you look at the new primary bedroom,
Mhm.
not really the new primary bedroom, it's the same location. It's just got more floor plan. Yep, exactly. It's mirroring like that on the interior side.
Oh, I understand.
Mhm.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, thanks, Chris. I didn't know you could do that. I'm learning something.
Yeah, so it creates a symmetry within the room.
Correct. Yeah. You can also see how we're making use, they have like a really massive full bath right now, but half of the room is like got a 3 foot.
No,
Meanwhile, in it.
normally I'm a big fan of things lining up, but the second floor windows, the other two that remain don't line up with what's below. So I guess I could go either way on that then. And
Yeah,
they only are up by, what, probably 4 or 5 inches.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as well. It doesn't necessarily bother me that it's off slightly, though if it were, I would either from the facade standpoint, I would either make that a greater shift so that it feels more intentional or align it. But I appreciate the alignment within the bedroom itself, and the symmetry that it provides the room inside. Plus, as you're sort of walking by from the street, I don't know that, you never really see that west elevation in elevation. So I don't think, from my perspective, I don't think it's a problem that they don't align. And to Alex's point, the second floor windows don't align. The other second floor windows don't align with the windows below either. So my 2 cents.
Anything else?
I just had a quick question. I'm actually a big fan of those B&B wood windows. I just was wondering, is the homeowner planning on adding storms over those or leaving them exposed?
Angela, do you have a preference or intention there?
Hi, everyone. That's a great question. And a decision that we haven't fully reached. I think that right now our home has aluminum clad or aluminum storms through most of the windows, but not all. And I think that many of the aluminum storms detract from the aesthetics of the wood windows that we do have. So initially adding additional aluminum storms to match was not part of the overall program for this. I would be interested maybe in like future decades as time and resources allow, maybe switching to wood storm windows that are more traditional to this kind of home, but storms are not really in the program. And especially for the back facade, which is where we spend most of our time at the home, I enjoy just looking at the wavy glass of old wood windows. So I wouldn't want storms like in front of that. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's something that hasn't been fully decided yet.
I was just curious. I know that it's treated with the preservative. It's just with those newer wood, you either have to be really diligent with maintaining your paint and your caulk or go the route of the storm windows. But the Restoration Society has used this product on another project, and I think that the look is really ideal, and I think it's a great choice. just be ready to be diligent with your paint and caulk maintenance.
All right, any other feedback? Antonia, do you have what you need?
Yep, thank you guys.
Okay. All right, Nate, you want to call the next one?
Yeah, so the last item on our agenda today is 3802 Clinton Avenue, and Antonia Marinucci is presenting again.
I think a majority of us are familiar with this one, whether it be through the neighborhood or from the OCI board. I don't think I've presented anything for this one yet, but essentially what happened was the long-term owner passed away. Ohio City Inc. is now, Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, grantor of this property, as there wasn't a claim to it after the previous owner had passed. And so part of, it's been a very long process involving the court system to allow for the restoration of this home. And I believe the whole point of it is to not fall prey to like a house flipper. So this allows Ohio City Inc. to grant, I don't even know if these are the right terms. My clients who have hired me are acting as general contractor as stewards to this property. And the first priority of the property, which is some of the changes that you've seen if you've gone past the house throughout the last year, are abating its nuisance status. It was in really poor condition under the previous ownership, and we are very slowly kind of rectifying a lot of that as well, which has been just a very long process because every step of the way has to be approved by the court system. So as you can imagine, that doesn't go very quickly. History of the house itself, it's the Thomas Axworthy house. I believe it was circa 1870. Thomas Axworthy was apparently robbed the city blind of like 10 million in 1880 or 1890, and then like skipped town and like completely disappeared into the wind, except for apparently then wrote a letter back to the city apologizing like 20 years later. Pretty solid piece of Cleveland history. The house next door was like a little twin of this house. I believe they were built together. That house had significant fire damage, probably, I don't know, Alex, do you remember 10 years ago, maybe? Also damaged this house. So some of the damage on it is mostly lives on that west side where they're very close to each other. And you can kind of see how these little twins throughout time from the Stanford maps. We have a pretty great photo from 1957. Something interesting to note is that it originally had a front stoop rather than a full porch, but at some point in history, someone had done this sort of like folk Victorian style extended porch. So that's what we're left with right now, clearly in a state of disarray. So these are existing photos. I took most of these last week and over the weekend. So this is the latest and greatest in terms of what the existing conditions are. You can see that the exterior windows are boarded up at the moment to, again, facilitate in the nuisance abatement. You can see that this is the west facade visible from Clinton, and then the west facade visible from the rear. This is the facade that sustained some fire damage when the house next door had significant fire, again, probably 10 years ago. So continue, please. It's taking a long time to load on the screen. These are looking at the east and north facades. The house itself has a lot of great retained detail in both the siding and kind of like the gingerbread details. So the intention for this proposal is approval for windows, paint color, and a rear modification, a slight rear modification to the roof line, all of which are documented here. So looking at this primary south facade, one of the big things that we were excited about is restoring the front windows. There is currently like a 3-light situation that to me feels very like mid 1900s. We would really love to correct those big front windows that clearly, as you can see from this proposed facade, really do take it back to the original Victorian intention. And we went through different exercises to land on the recommendation for the window style. And what we where we landed was prairie windows on those 3rd story asps, and then 2/2 double hungs on the remainder of the facade. There were 3 different window types: prairie style, 2/2, and just a clear double hung existing on the property. And we felt visually that the 2/2 style with the prairie only on the 3rd floor best complemented the style without overwhelming it. Because again, it does have a lot of detail on that full Victorian facade and all of the sticking and kind of material changes. Next slide. This one is looking at the east facade, which we have, this is along West 38th. So we have full visibility on this guy. So what we are aiming to do is to, again, just replace the windows with new and continue that language of the 2/2 style. You can see the prairie modification on that 3rd floor. And we're opting to keep a 2/2 in that little dormer because it is what's existing and it fits the kind of rear servants portion of the house a little bit more than the more decorative prairie style on the main body. One thing of note is that you can see that there are 2 windows on that proposed east facade that we are actually going to leave existing. And the existing wood, their existing wood windows, we're going to leave them as is for now. The clients have aspirations once they take full control of the property and ownership of the home to propose a modification in that area. So we're just going to leave those as is for now. That's something we'll come back for at a later date. They want to put in a side porch, spoiler alert. So then the rear, can you go back up again, Nate? I'm sorry. I want to point out this rear modification, which is really obvious from this north facade. The back of the house right now has a hip roof, and they have they're eventually going, when they eventually get to move into this house, they have 4 children. So they certainly want to make as much use of this big house square footage as possible. And we would like to take that rear hip, just extend it into a gable presentation so that they can just get, again, a little bit more head height on that existing attic footprint. So you can see that change in the roof line here. And if you can look at the north facade, Nate, if you can go down one more now, we can look at that front on. And we are proposing some changes to window location, a little bit of adding and taking away on those north and west facades. So this is illustrated here on the existing north facade. We'd like to take the existing 1st floor window to a door and mirror both those openings on the other side of the facade. And then you can see that the hip to a gable with an addition of a window on that 3rd floor. That one would be casement style on the top floor. And then the west facade, is seeing a little bit more modification from a window standpoint, mostly driven by interior program and the fact that this one is about 10 feet from the neighbor. So it's for both privacy and as well as the fact that there's not really doing much for them in terms of interior light and view. And those are also the areas of the most significant fire damage. Those existing windows are currently damaged. So this was, we're hoping to, present appropriate modification given those existing conditions. You can see where we're proposing that we fill in or modify on that 1st floor. We're adding one on the 2nd floor to the rear. And we're also proposing filling in that 3rd floor one that's in the gable is on the floor of the existing attic roof line. You can see where the datum is for that floor plate. We'd like to just fill it in and it will become the location for the upstairs furnace on the interior floor plan. But the fact that it's on the floor is not ideal for the living space part of it. And it's just, again, it's facing the other house. It's really not doing much for that portion of the house, interior or exterior. And mechanical. Yeah, it'll be like, we're proposing that that's the mechanical room location. So looking at the color scheme, it's kind of already a big dark house, and they really wanted to keep with that idea, but sort of refresh it and give it a little bit of new life as it's being restored. So we're proposing Sherwin-Williams Sea Serpent as the body color, and Black of Night as the trim and porch component colors. Just letting it kind of be the big looming Victorian that it already is, just a little bit more cared for. For the windows themselves, right now the basis of design is Marvin Windows, aluminum clad wood windows. It's their ultimate line. We are also considering Pella. So right, Marvin's the front runner at the moment, but we might go with a Pella based on if they have a better lead time, because Marvin's are very far out right now. And the method for the porch right now is to just repair as needed and replace as needed in kind.
Say that one more time. Say that
Sorry?
last one more time. What was that?
What'd you say?
I missed that last sentence you just said.
Oh, the porch method right now is to repair or replace in kind as needed. So the intention is to keep as much as we can of the existing porch, but there's been significant damages. I know you've seen. So it's going to be a 1-for-1 deal on that porch as they kind of dig into it.
And a new roof, or
there is a new roof on it, and
it has one.
Yes,
Okay.
if you can, and you can see it in the existing photos. It's just a dimensional shingle, charcoal color. That was there was a tree on West 38th that the city owned that had been growing into and on top of, physically on top of that roof, and it was causing a lot of structural damage. So last summer, I think it was, we started down the path of who needed to take care of that tree, the homeowner, or not even the homeowner, the stewards of the house or the city. The city eventually said, no, it's our tree, we will remove it. They had to take the tree down. And then priority number one was that roof and rectifying that roof and getting a new roof on it, because it was leaking significantly into the house, and the weight of that tree on it was this massive limb resting physically on the roof. So that was one of the priorities in terms of abating that nuisance status, which we're still working towards. And this exterior work is pretty much like part of like a soft phase 1 of the restoration job, which will include the windows, exterior work, paint, tuck pointing of the sandstone, some repair of the sandstone foundation, insulation. We're into that. A lot of the sexy stuff.
Stabilization.
It's really an effort, with aspirations, of course, to a long-term home for them.
So I have a couple of comments about the windows, the prairie windows. The way that they're drawn, I see a lot of symmetry, like in the center panes of glass. And when I think of that style, but on this Victorian home, I always feel like the grid should be pushed out really far so that it's very small squares in the four corners, and not so that the center pane of glass is a larger square. Does that make sense? So I don't know if that's a design option with the windows that you're looking into, but I would prefer that architecturally. I think that's truer to the Victorian. And then the major changes on that west side. I mean, I guess my gut says to keep the windows in on that first floor. I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of change in terms of removing the windows. And if it's really about the privacy option there, drapes and shades, I think would be a better choice than really drastically altering the existing historic openings. I feel like you have a better justification for removing the window in the third floor, given the programming that's up there. But I'm not really a fan of taking out that much historic material.
It's not, the windows there are not original. The openings made, I question the one that's very close to the bump out. So the openings themselves may be close to, if not original, the windows themselves are not. Whether that was a result of the fire damage, but I don't think so, because they seem to not be in great shape as it is. So I think it predates that, the modifications. They're like a very weird faux stained glass situation happening behind those board ups. So if that is any, but noted. I know what you mean.
I have a couple questions, comments. One, I agree with Margaret on the windows. Maybe even maintaining half of the ones that you show eliminated there, but for consideration. And then I have to ask the Muttons. I'm sure the answer is yes. They are external, of course. The house caddy corner across the street told me the same thing, and they're internal.
Yeah.
I
hope you know that won't happen on my watch. So.
I appreciate that. It drives me absolutely nuts when people tell us one thing. And
I know exactly. I thought the exact same thing about that one across the street. So.
And the roof. All right. The west facade. So the prairie window that Margaret was talking about earlier. It looks like there's an existing one there on the south, towards the south facade of the house that's being replaced. Is that original or?
Which one?
It's what's on the screen right in front of us right now. It says existing west facade. There's the rectangular window towards the porch.
Towards the porch.
That window right there that's being replaced.
Yeah, it's not the window that is currently there. It looks like it's drawn kind of like in that prairie style. It's not, we don't think it's original. It does not appear to be original. And I think it also has like faux stained glass paneling in it, if I recall. Is that right, Amy?
It's more of like a 1960s style replication of like in that era of stained glass, like not original stained glass.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's leaded.
Okay. And then since the rear modification, I think is fine. And then the paint color feels very foreboding. It's a big house and it feels too much like a haunted house in that color scheme. There are other, I think Cleveland's a dark place, a gloomy place 6 months of the year. Let's lighten it up a little bit. I have no problem with the blue palette. I think it's just too foreboding. It makes this house, I don't know, it's a bit much. Maybe we could lighten it up a bit. I don't know how others feel, Chris, Margaret, but it's too dark.
I love the Addams family. I don't know that I'd want to live next door.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's probably, if I were to rank my comments today, that would be number one.
Okay.
In terms of preference. And then I have a couple questions. I know that they don't fall in the windows, paint color, or rear modification categories, but if I could just run through. So the front door is not currently specified, it's just blank.
It's in there. It's there. The existing front door is there. I should clarify that.
Oh, you're just keeping the existing front door there. Okay.
Yeah, you can't see it from the outside because it's been boarded up for, I don't know, as long as I've lived in the neighborhood, but on the inside you can see it. And I should probably put that in for landmarks.
Because when I just see the opening space, I'm thinking, is that to be determined? What's happening? Okay, great, thank you.
It's just nothing. It's just it's a void. It's existing.
Down the road, the fence was taken out. I anticipate that you're not putting back a chain link fence. Will that come back? down the
So
road?
definitely it will not be a chain link fence. It will come back. I mean, we are gonna be probably coming back with layers of post work here. So this is kind of just really phase one.
All right, and
Half
then
stabilizing, half kind of phase one.
you have temporary wood stairs on the back, totally fine. What is the long-term plan for the back, though? Will there
So
be
the aspiration, the long-term aspiration for the property is that they would love to put a side porch on the east side, like along West 38th, that would wrap a little bit towards the back as well and capture that side door so that there's a full porch experience
wraparound?
for entering, yeah, like a wraparound. We're just obviously kind of far off from that.
There's a house.
I would, and my hope is that we would come, that gets developed in decisions like the fence, and I think eventually a garage, are on the next round of modifying, but really the important piece right now is kind of still these stabilizing and core and shell efforts.
There's a house in Tremont on the corner of Lincoln Park on Starkweather, 3 doors east of Prosperity, that has a side porch that is narrow but broad enough to use. I think that's provided a great example for this house when you get to it.
Perfect. Starkweather.
Yeah, on Starkweather, yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Those are my comments. So color being number 1, preference for not losing all 4 window openings on the west. Otherwise, looks
Yeah,
good.
we can certainly revisit that, the west side rear facade. Are you guys opposed to the change to like the awning style? Like if we were to keep a rhythm of windows, or keeping the windows, but perhaps going to like that raised sill awning, would that be something that you're open to, or would your preference still be to see the full height double hung or some sort of iteration of those elements?
I think the preference is always to keep the openings as is.
Agreed.
And then fallback positions go down from there to half height or elimination altogether. But I think the starting preference is keep the openings.
Yeah, my comments there, I guess echo Margaret's and Alex's. Not understanding what the interior program is there. I would say if we could maintain as many of those windows in the sort of size and locations that they are, that would be great. And then depending on what the intended use of space is behind, if I would be open to further adjustments. I don't have any issues with the second floor roof change. I really don't have a comment necessarily on the colors. I think that I can appreciate the dark color palette, but it is a large house, and if there was a lighter palette that still accomplished what the stewards are looking to achieve, I would be open to that as well. So that's not my number 1 priority here. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, paint can always be changed, so I also have like a little bit of flexibility, but I agree that it just is overwhelming a little bit. Maybe keeping that dark body color, but lighting the trim is all it would take.
I will absolutely take that back to them and see if it's something that they really want to pursue, and if so, then we will ask. But yeah, we'll definitely revisit the conversation on both of those points, the windows and the paint with them, and see if we can get it up for both.
I do love
Not a bad
the
color.
dark window itself. The dark clad is great.
It is.
I wish more people did that.
It's so nice. I agree. And we're good with the window, the front modification correction, I hope.
Absolutely. Yes, thank
Right.
you.
Yeah.
I'm very anxious about that. That's priority number one for me. It's
There was
correcting.
something that happened in Ohio City in the 50s, maybe the 40s, but probably the 50s, where all the first 4 windows were all made those bay windows or those. Like,
Well, if you look at the
there was a salesman walking around slinging those things.
it's interesting because if you look at that 1957 photo at the very front of the presentation, Nate, and zoom in on that sucker, you can see that. So originally from the Sanborn maps, we saw that the front porch was more like a stoop. And then at some point, look clearly in maybe the 40s or early 50s, we got this guy, which we've all seen on the houses as well. So those porch lines that came to be.
Mhm.
And then after that, somebody, did a Victorian replica porch, so modified the porch, but then didn't change the windows back. So now we have, and the head height is too low. The whole thing, it just doesn't make sense on the front of this house.
Are the existing doors double or is it single with transom? What's behind there?
So massive wood double doors. Let me see if I
Mhm.
don't know that I have.
I did see them before. They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
That's exciting.
They're very, yeah. There was this whole house was a treasure. I mean, though there was John, the owner who had passed, had decades of just like treasures in there. It was pretty incredible, though difficult to inherit, to remedy, like what was the hoarding situation. So
Look at the brickwork on that front chimney in the 1957 photo.
I was just thinking the same thing.
And look at the
that
street
chimney's
light
not
there.
there anymore. So that
Yeah.
front facing one, isn't there anymore, in the whole, it's not there the whole way down, and you can see where there should have been like fireplaces in the house. It's just not there anymore, which is a really big bummer. That roof, one of the other reasons that the roof was such a anxiety point is, I'm sure Alex, you in particular have seen this on your street. It was that chimney hole was just tarped over for like God knows how long. So that there was just a lot of sad things happening on that roof, on the roof condition. But yeah, unfortunately that chimney's not there anymore.
All right. There's nothing else. Any other comments? All right, Nate, we're we can adjourn the Ohio City Design Review meeting.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.